Hi team, this is George. I want to talk a little bit about section 2 of our signature assignment. You're going to be looking specifically at assessment, so assessing your training and your methods and media within that. So I want to first jump in talking about assessment real quick. This is going to be interactive, so I hope you like the first one. So this one's going to be very similar to that. So as in assessment, first, before we even talk about that, remember in one of my first videos, we talked about schema, and that's how our mind processes things. And it processes it from our past experiences. That's why none of us have exactly the same perspective. Like a blueprint drawing always shows different perspectives, top view, bottom view, side view, things like that. So I want us to challenge our perspective a little bit. Just like here, we need to look at things from multiple perspectives. But we're going to challenge. And the way we're going to do that is first, you have 10 seconds. I'll count them out. And you are going to state as many things as you can see in this picture that I'm about to show you. So get ready. So 10 seconds, just think of as many things as this picture can be. Ready? Go. Ten. So how many did you come up with? Usually we adults come up with 2 to 6 because it's an odd type of drawing, and that's because we try to make sense of what it is. Our brains are saying this could be that, this could be this. Some people probably saw that little piece here was a cliff, maybe the front of a boat or something like that, or just about anything. But usually as adults, we just come up with 2 to 6. But guess what? Kids, they come up with 20 to 30 what it is. So that's because their perspective is not honed down, is not pared down from all their experiences yet. So we need to kind of retrain our brain to be able to come up with many more perspectives or many more things that this picture could be. So my challenge to you is, as we go through this and look at assessment methods and media, is to think like a kid. Be that kid that has that airplane flying around. Think of what's possible. Ask questions. They can be internal questions, they can be external questions to any of us in the class. But just question what you're doing. Ask yourself questions along the way. And those questions will hopefully open up greater opportunities for us. Actively wonder what if, because so often we stop doing things because we just don't ask ourselves that question and come up with a fantastic answer of what if. So, and also enjoy the process, because as we go through this, it can take time and it can be a little painstaking at times going through different assessments and things. But remember, as we go through the tough times, especially, we're gaining tools. And as we gain these tools, we're becoming better at our craft and better at what we do. So let's go ahead and try it again. Do you see more possibilities? Is it more than just a boat, a cliff, triangle on the bottom? If you were a kid, it could be a spaghetti dinner. Who knows what it could be? It could be a table. You could be looking from the top. So often we look at it, we want to see it as sort of a landscape picture, but look at the direction you're looking at it from. Maybe if you're looking at it a different way, it could be just about anything. So think about it. Could be a city street, right? Just depends how you're looking at it. So did you see more possibilities? If you thought like a kid, you probably did. I didn't want to give you too many ideas in other words, to further shut down the schema, but that works very well. So let's look at evaluation. First thing we want to think of is, how will you evaluate your training? And when we try to answer that question, we need to think about who, what, where, when, how, and why. It's pretty much that simple. Who are we going to evaluate? What are we going to evaluate? When are we going to evaluate it? Where? So all about data. Where are we going to evaluate it? How? Why are we going to evaluate it? From my perspective, they're all value questions. I particularly like the why and the how, because when we answer the why and the how, quite often what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up discovering our return on investment. So let's think about Kirkpatrick's 4 levels for a second. Let's try a different color. Let me try green. Does that show up? Yeah, it shows up. So think of Kirkpatrick's levels of assessment. I'm going to stack them. Sometimes you might see them like a stair. but I'm going to go ahead and stack because they build on each other. That first level is the first level is what we often call a reaction or smile sheets, right? We've all seen those smile sheets. Now, I want to challenge everybody in the next slide to build those smile sheets so they're learner-centered. So often we have uh, instructor-centered smile sheets that we don't really know any other way of going about it because we've seen them written in that way so many times. And just to give you a hint for that, I am going to go over to here to Dr. Kirkpatrick himself. Reality check, where are they today? Uh, Trainer-centered, the program objectives were clearly defined. Learner-centered, I understood the learning objectives. Uh, Trainer-centered for course materials. The course material complemented the course content. Learner-centered. I felt the course materials will be essential for my course. So that's what we want to look. We want to look at the learner-centered because that's going to give us a better level 1 evaluation. If our level 1 evaluation is all trainer-centered or content-centered questions, then guess what? We've just created a smile sheet that really doesn't begin to explore what what the learner actually experienced, and that's what we want to do. So that's why that is important. Bottom line. Then the next step after our reaction, we are going to get learning. Did learning occur? How do we know if learning occurred? That's our second level. Quite often you'll see tests, things like that. So who's going to be gathering the data? Is it going to be an instructor in the classroom? What data? If that data is not linked to an objective, guess what? We're not really measuring if the learning was effective or not, or they're actually creating a change. So it has to go to what? It has to go to the objectives. Where? Quite often it's in the classroom. How? How is a big one because quite often the how is going to tell us is going to be limited at some point to resources. So you may have to actually give tests that don't really fit as well as you would like because of resources. That happens. But you adjust and then you try to make the tests that you have to give robust enough to meet those to meet the needs. And then why? Always go back to why do I care if the learner learned? How do I know if the learner learned? Why do I care? We want to do that because that's going to lead us to our next step, which is the behavior. So we're trying to make a change in behavior. The first definition of learning that I ever received when I went from being a mechanic to a training instructor was learning is simply a change in behavior. And that has stuck with me forever. You know, quite often the first thing we learn that sticks, and it absolutely does. So change in behavior. So why is it important to measure the perspective from the learner here? Why is it important to measure if they learned? Because you know what? We need to create that change in behavior. And why is it important to create that change in behavior? I'm going to write it up here. Sorry. Running out of room. Why is it important to create that change in behavior? It's important because this one is our results or our performance. I like to call it performance. And as you know, performance is a combination of behavior and outcome. So if we don't know why we're doing all the stuff underneath, we're highly possible not going to be looking at the right performance factors to get a good measure. Because if I put together a training program for leadership development, but I don't know why, and I don't know what's important to all the stakeholders, then I'm not going to measure the right the right behaviors. I'm not going to measure any of that correctly because there's a reason why companies spend money on training, and we need to tap into that. That's one of our biggest not issues, but one of our biggest shortfalls when it comes to working in the training department is for many years we weren't able to really connect that with what the organization wants. So as we look into the why, the biggest thing that we can do is match all this up, all Kirkpatrick's 4 levels to the organizational needs. So when you answer that question of why, make that organizational needs. That's the key right there. Okay, so level 1 evaluations. We looked at those. I went out of turn a little bit. That's okay, but we're going to take a moment and we're going to try to write one. So take a pause, and try it. So it's coming up right about now. All right, so let's look at methods and media. Methods and media. So here's how I go about the whole thing. Whoops. Here's how I go about everything as far as course design to hopefully make it meaningful. The how we're going to do it. Gotta have my pen. Sorry. The methods. So how we're going to do it, and the media. What the first thing we need to look at is who is our audience. Bottom line. What is meaningful to them? So instead of with them, what's in it for me, what's meaningful for them. I don't know an acronym for that one, but that's what we want to do. So the method. So we have the content. We know what content is going to be. At least that's my assumption we're going to make. We know what the content needs to be. We do that through the needs analysis and everything that we talked about last time. So the methods, that's the how we're going to get that material across. Well, what's meaningful? Do they need to have it on their mobile phone? Do they need to have it accessible via paper because they can't have electronic devices wherever they're at? What is meaningful? So how is it going to come across? So that should be the driver, because the biggest thing that we can create when designing courses is we need to build, and I believe you already know this, we need to build a relationship. As we build that relationship, there's a relationship from the curriculum, so we'll just put a C for curriculum, and the learner. There's a relationship from the learner to the learner. That goes back and forth every which way. And there's also a relationship to the instructor and to the learner. It goes back and forth. So whatever method we use, we need to facilitate these relationships, because that's where the deep learning occurs. We can have, that's why we don't want just a PDF file put online. That would be terrible. You don't want to walk into a classroom and have an instructor read from slides, even though it happens. That does not help build that relationship. So think of the methods as ways we can help build that relationship. One way that I'm trying with this is the happy act. So it's interactive. So you actually have to do things, and it's just not me being the sage on the stage. It's me understanding that learning is interactive, and I don't have all the answers, but we as a collective have a lot of the answers. And we'll find the rest, the ones that we don't have. So, and remember the big thing, this curriculum to the learner as well, that includes the medium. So if it's online, face-to-face, however it may be, the medium is included in the curriculum when we're talking about this. So media, if you don't have internet access somewhere, doesn't happen too often, but maybe you can't go to certain sites, maybe you're in a secured area, you don't have things like that. So you have to keep all that into account as we build, because media doesn't necessarily have to be video. It can be things built off of Adobe Captivate, where you press, print things come up, or different discussions, video, audio, all sorts of different things. So keep all that in mind, and have a great week. Thanks for all the effort that you put forward and everything that you do.